Okay. All right, all right. Volume up. All right. Let me thank you guys, first of all, who've been here since 2. Thank you so much for your patience. This is our Feet of the Elders session. So we have 2 beautiful elders. That's helpful. That was calming. 2 beautiful elders here. They're going to be sharing with us their experience growing up in the civil rights era, in the Black Power era, things that they've witnessed that we've only heard about or read about or talk about. So the purpose for this event was because I thought there tends to be a missing link between the youth and the elders. And I see that if we could attempt to bridge that gap, that'll assist a whole lot from a lot of our youth going wayward and astray, and they just don't have that wisdom from the elders that it used to be, how it used to be. So I think that could be one of the catalysts for change. So hence the event here today, our Feet of the Elders session with Nana Malaya, who wears many hats. She's an artistic director, a celebrity mom. She may even get into that with you guys. A choreographer, storyteller, poet, talent scout, life coach, and so much more. So you guys are in for a treat. And here I have my very, very, very special Madam Walker. Oh man, I love Madam Walker. She is a community activist. She has her own braiding school and lock and braiding technician school. She does a lot around, help me out, Mama. Domestic violence, thank you. Domestic violence, awareness, and things of that nature. And she's just a wealth of knowledge, So again, you guys are in for a treat, and they don't have to stay on the realm of the civil rights. So the goal is to just share their wisdom. So wherever their voices take us is where we're going. Okay, so again, just give a round of applause to our elders here today, and we'll get started. I'm going to open us up with a song. My name is Nana Malaya, Nana Enum, one who speaks in parables and a dancing diplomat. I've been very grateful to have literally danced around the world for kings and queens and presidents and many, many other distinguished elders, whether it be John Lewis and Mary Wright Edelman. I've been pleased to perform for Rosa Parks and for many, many others, Dorothy Height, many others who have both been here and in other places around the world. My mission in life is to share, to be a catalyst for thought, for education, inspiration, action that'll stimulate change. So I hope that all the things that we share today will help all of you with those missions as well in your life. So I want to thank her for having this platform for us, because I think it's extremely important. And I want you to know that even though I sit here as an elder, you'll hear me claim that I'm either 22, don't dispute me, or I'll be 999 years old. But whichever one, I know that I'm always willing, and most of us who are over 40
are usually willing to listen to all those who are under 40, because I find that I learn from everyone and we learn from each other. It's good that we have a village, because it is the village that keeps us alive. So if you don't have your own personal village, like you haven't established some friends that you share different things in your life with, create a village. I've spoken with people, both those who are over 40 and under 40, that don't have a village. They have very few friends, very few folks that they can talk to, share with, discuss things with, question, go and research with. So make sure you create your own village. So if it's not your biological family, whether you're physically or emotionally detached, create yourself a village. Take that time to begin that development, because we literally are here because of the wisdom of the dead. So I'm going to give a song that's going to give homage to our elders first. And you all can, everybody taking a deep breath and let it out. A deep breath in and out. Deep breath in and out. This is a poem that was put to music by Sweet Honey in the Rock. Dum bum ba dee dum, bum bum ba dee dee dum, bum bum ba dee dum, bum bum ba dee dee dum. Everybody sing that. Bum bum ba dee dum. Come on. Louder. Who else is in this room? You got it. You don't have to be a singer. You can make some noise. Bum bum ba dee dum, bum bum. Louder. Keep going. Don't change it. Dee dee dum, dee dee dum, bum bum ba dee dum, bum bum dee dee dum, bum bum ba dee dum, bum bum ba dee dum. Listen more often to things than to me. Well, now listen more often to things than to me. The fire's voice is heard here in the wind. The bush song. It is the ancestors' breath. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. 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 Oh, you all just did such a wonderful job. Village, community, that's what it's about. None of us can live in this world alone. And so, in terms of the civil rights movement, we knew we had to work together. We are still working together. Sometimes it doesn't look that way, yet we are. And if you don't know who's working together, ask us and ask us and ask a few of other of us, and we can tell you who's working together and what we're doing. So we've got to continually work together. This is called Black Wall Street. Raise your hand if you know there was a Black Wall Street. All right. Yes, that's important. And whatever you know, share. Because somebody reminded me, whatever I know, I was taught. Whether it was formally or informally. So I just want to share a short bit about where we came from, because our life didn't start at the Civil Rights Movement. Our life as indigenous African people didn't start with the enslavement process. Our life is where life came from. You were the first to write, the first to read. Humanity began with your black seed. For 10,000 years, we were here alone. And then all the others were born. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see, understand what you hear, because minute by minute, hour by hour, if you lose your history, you lose your power. Minute by minute, hour by hour, if you lose your history, you what?
Lose your power.
Once more, minute by minute, what?
Hour by hour.
If you lose your history,
You lose your power.
You know, Galileo, Pythagoras, Aristotle, if you've heard those names, raise your hand. And Picasso, too. They got credit for what they learned from you. So sharpen your eyes and tune your ears so you know what you see, understand what you hear. Down in Washington, D.C., that big, tall Tekkanen, they call the Washington Monument. You know when you see it, you're in Washington, D.C., that was designed by a person of African descent. D.C., the city, was designed by a person of African descent. If you know his name, raise your hand. All right. And since I think you're one of the youngest ones to raise your hand, will you tell me your first name and then tell me who designed Washington, D.C.? What's your first name?
Kalima.
Kalima. Thank you, Kalima. I'm Nana Malaya. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Mama.
Okay. So tell me, who designed Washington, D.C.?
Benjamin Banneker.
Everybody say Benjamin Banneker. That's right. That's right. Benjamin Banneker. Yes. And there's not anything of recognition to Benjamin Banneker in Washington, D.C. So let's see if we can change that. With all the development of an area they call the Wharf, did they just put all that stuff down there? There's a little park, and I have to say this, it's a tacky little park. Not too far from L'Enfant Plaza, who they give credit for designing Washington, D.C., who was a French, European, white person who got drunk and didn't finish the job. Benjamin Banneker had to do it, but he's not the one in the history books. They got L'Enfant Plaza, but they don't have anything for our brother Benjamin Banneker. So we got to teach our own. Whatever you learn for yourself, teach your children. Talk to your families. Talk to your neighbors. Stand out in the corner with the brothers on the corner. Talk to them too. Because we make decisions usually for the information we know or what we don't know. So I want to share a story as a way to share about the quote-unquote civil rights movement. Because there's lots of things, and I'm sure we have similar experiences having marched and been in certain places. So I like to say, Nana Malaya is from Africa, New York, or Africa, D.C., or Africa, Pittsburgh. I'm the daughter of Mary Wilhelmina Brown from New York City and Ebenezer Ray, who's known to be from Barbados, and his family from Ghana, West Africa. So I like to say I'm a part of new boat people and old boat people. Some folks who haven't been here that long, and some people who have been here for a long time ago. But they say just because you find a kitten in the oven doesn't make it a biscuit.
That's right.
And it's been said that we're Africans, not necessarily because we were born on the continent of Africa, because Africa is born in us. And there are different times I know in my life when I feel it all the time. I see things of certain people. I recognize things. I'm drawn to things. And come to find out, that's a very African thing to do. Well, storytelling is one of those. There's not a black person in here that don't tell stories. They may not be known as a storyteller, but you know they be telling some stories. Both the truth and the lies. Both the ones that work and the ones not at work. When they don't show up somewhere and you're trying to figure out why they... And what happened to you? Well, I want to tell you one. I'm going to tell you about Farmer Brown's mule, but I also want to mention that I do come from a family that not only understood storytelling, but was very deeply rooted in the pride of being African and African American. My mother's grandmother is Native American. I've never physically met her, but I want to tell and encourage each one of you, if you have dreams, if you have feelings, if you have inclinations, follow them and recognize that your ancestors talking to you. My mother used to talk about her grandmother playing, peekaboo? Taking her hair, long straight hair over her face, playing peekaboo. I used to ask my mother about that when I was little. I said, who was it that somebody used to play with me and put their head over and play peekaboo? And my mother was like, not in your lifetime. But I remembered that. I had that memory of someone like that, you know. We called her Grandma Ada. They called her Grandma Ada. But my parents were elder when I was born. My father was almost 60. You hear that? My father was almost 60. Healthy African men can have children for a long time. And most either indigenous African men or people who are rooted in the traditional medicine and health, they ain't taking no Viagra, so y'all be careful about all that. But I say that to say that my father used to work for the Amsterdam News. So I've been a reporter all my life. So my father worked for the news. And then we moved to Pittsburgh, and he worked with the Pittsburgh Courier. And there I was able to do a number of things in terms, I was trained as an opera singer. My name is Marion Malay. I was named after Marion Anderson. I was trained as a dancer, as an actress, storyteller, gymnast. What else did I do? Cheerleading, all those kind of active things. Track, you know. And I had the opportunity to create some things because we recognized in the 60s that things didn't look the way we wanted them to. For those of you that might not remember, 50 years ago, there were very few black folks on TV. There were very few black folks in sports. There are very few black folks outside of your immediate community that you could see, whether you were from Chocolate City or not. That's where we saw our village and our community. So in the 60s, I and many others were like, we need some more folks. So studying opera, I had a woman by the name of Leotone Price, Marion Anderson, and a woman named Shirley Vivrette. These are people who were well known and developing their skills around the world in terms of great singers and opera singers specifically. In terms of theater, we had Sammy Davis. And of course, when Motown erupted, everybody ran to the TV when the Temptations or Diana Ross or any of those folks came on TV. You've heard about Jackie Robinson as one of the first to get into quote-unquote Major League Baseball. How many of you knew there was a Negro baseball league? Raise your hand. A lot of folks don't know that. And not only that, it was a rich one and it was a great one. And they talk about a gentleman by the name of Satchel Paige, who was a much better baseball player than Robinson ever could think about. But he didn't have the temperament to put up with all the BS that he had to go through once he got into that. You know? He wasn't going to take people spitting on him and throwing stuff at him when he came out onto the field. You know what I'm saying? So they're like, well, can't be Satchel, even though he's a much better player. Let's find somebody with a different temperament. But I say that because now there's so many people in the football games getting ready to go on tomorrow, boycott the NFL, that now there are so many black players and athletes. When I was younger, I was asked what I wanted to be, which was the norm. What do you want to be when you grow up? I had a drop-down list. I want to be, and at that time, there were things black folks couldn't be no matter where you lived in the world. You didn't have to be in the South. And there are things that women couldn't be. I know that. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a cowgirl. I want to be a fireman, policeman, dancer, gymnast, opera singer, dancer, I had a whole list. I didn't think anything of it. It's just me. I had a list. You asked me what I wanted to be, I had a whole list. And then I had someone ask me, I was about maybe 7. And I'm blessed. I've been an old soul and I've been a problem solver. So they came to me, they said, oh, that's cute. How you going to be all those in one lifetime? That was a problem. I'm very idealistic in my personality. I recognize that. But I'm also very practical. So all those things were all ideals, you know? And folks weren't going to the moon. So I was like, for me to be an astronaut and a black astronaut, yeah, right. But it's something I said I wanted to do. I love the stars. But you know what? I figured it out. It took me about maybe a year. And I figured out by the time I was 7.5, 8, I'm going to be an actress. I can be all those things in one lifetime. Did I get it? You know, I can be a nice person. I can be a mean person. I can be a robber. I can be a pastor. But I can be all those things in one lifetime. So that's something to think about, little people. What do you want to do in your life? What's your major goal? Think about that, because you can think about the things you might want to do and learn. But the other thing is, I know, is my parents exposed me to everything. I'm also a visual artist. They put me in private piano lessons. I had private, art lessons. They kept me busy. I was a busy kid, so they had to keep me busy. You know, they say an idle child is the what? Devil's workshop. Y'all heard that one? So keep your children busy. Not so busy you drive yourself crazy, but, you know, keep them busy. And expose them to everything, because you don't know what they're going to need later on in life. Thurgood Marshall was one of those people who was the first black person on the Supreme Court. He was a person who was very energetic in the classroom. And sometimes he was so energetic that they had to sit him over to the side. Guess what they made him do when he was sitting over to the side? Read the Constitution of the United States. They didn't know they were setting him up for greatness. Yeah, you go over there and read this. You know, that'll keep you busy. You know. So again, you never know. And what you might see even in your lifetime as something that might be a deterrent might actually be a benefit later in life. If a door closes, it might be the ancestors' way of telling you, don't go that way. Especially if it closes 3 or 4 times and almost jams you on your toe. It's like, okay, I got it, all right. And if you look, there might be a better opportunity for you. I've worked with August Wilson, who's now a renowned playwright. When I worked with him, he was like, I was 17, he was like 25. We were just trying to change the world. We didn't know we actually would, but we wanted to make sure stories look like us. People could understand our history, learn our history in this country, as well as from other places. And if you ever know August's work, he makes sure he connects not only with what's going on in the era that he's writing about, but in the previous era, and he always connects it to the African ancestors all the time. We can't separate ourselves from our roots. And when we're being encouraged to separate ourselves from our roots, think about why. Because it's the strongest thing out there. And if you separate a tree from its root, what does it do? It dies. So make sure you embrace as many people as you can. I work with Phyllis Hyman. I work with a woman named Jerry Allen. These are all people, B.B. Moore Campbell, who became a well-known writer. So we're all people that, you know, when we were all hanging out together, didn't nobody know our names. But we had things that we wanted to do, goals that we wanted to achieve, and we decided, irregardless of the challenges, we were actually going to do that. And so we kept moving through those things. So I want to leave you with this, Farmer Brown's mule. You see, Farmer Brown had a mule. And what do you know about mules? You look like you're going to sleep. That's why I called on you, because I want to make sure you're paying attention. Brian. What do you know about a mule? One thing you know about a mule. All right, very good. Let's give him a round of applause. He said they use them to grind grains. Yes, they pull on a contraption. Yes, tell me your first name. Eli. Okay, what do you want to tell us about mules?
A mule is a combination of a horse and a donkey.
Oh, a mule. Give him a round of applause. A combination of a horse and a donkey. Yes, one other thing?
And there's different combinations. There's a combination of a tiger and a lion, a horse and a zebra and
Now, what else are you trying to tell me? I'm getting lost there for a minute, but you know, sometimes that happens in stories. Okay, so a mule. What is one of the most common things known about a mule? 1, 2, 3. He's
Stubborn.
stubborn. They don't ever say a mule is lazy, right? But they will say it's stubborn. But you know what a lot of people don't know about the mule? The mule is loyal. Very, very loyal. Well, you see, Farmer Brown had this mule, and every morning he used to hitch up that mule, and he would work that mule and work that mule and work that mule and work that mule from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. And he'd be working a farm, and at first his farm was just kind of small, maybe just as big as this room where we are. And he'd take that mule and hitch him up to the plow. And he'd work that mule and work that mule and work that farm and work that farm from can't see in the morning till when? Can't see at night. Well, you know what? The sun was good. The rain was good and the crops were good. And that farm grew. And that Farmer Brown had a lot more farm. He started planting more things. And it was all area back there and maybe part of that parking lot. And he took that mule and hitched him up to the plow and worked that mule and worked that mule and worked that farm and worked that farm from when? Can't see in the morning till when? Can't see at night. And again, the sun was good, the rain was good, and the crops were good. Wow, pretty soon, his farm had grown. It was bigger than this whole entire parking lot. Yes, it was big. And Farmer Brown thought he didn't need that mule no more. You see, they had come up with this machinery called a tractor. And Farmer Brown now decided he was going to get him a bright, shiny new tractor. The wheels were like this high. And he could sit up on there and work that farm and work that farm. And it didn't matter whether he worked from can't see in the morning, can't see at night. But now he didn't need the mule. Do you need a mule? No, you don't need a mule. You need a mule? Well, you know what? He decided to give it to these folks right here because they had a place way down in the country where they wanted to use the mule for their farm. And so the mule went with them, and they took that mule way past, somewhere past St. Mary's County. Farmer Brown was glad because he could sit on his tractor and be happy. Well, he got up the next day, and the mule was back. He tried to get rid of that mule. He gave that mule to so many people. He even gave it to somebody that had to put it in a truck and a trailer and take it far away. And the mule still, every time he turned around, might have taken a day or two, but the mule was back. I don't need this mule. So he decided to dig a deep ditch. And a ditch is a hole so deep you can't jump out of it. So wide you can't jump over it. And he dug a hole. And he led that mule the next day, put a piece of wood, a plank down there, and walked that mule down into the ditch. Of course, he took the plank out, and then he started literally dirty work. He took the dirt, threw it in the hole, took that dirt, threw it in the hole, took that dirt, threw it in the hole. What did he do? Took that dirt, threw it in the hole, took that dirt. I know you don't don't want to help him, I need you to help me. All right? Come on now. Took that dirt, threw it in the hole. 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 Took that dirt. And you know what? The mule was in there trying to figure out what was going on. How many times have you said what's going on when you knew what was going on? And that mule now had dirt up to their knees. It's hard to move. But I believe God gives every living creature spirit and creativity. And the mule was like, I got to do something different, because if I don't, I know what's going to happen. And self-determination, Kuji Chagolia, the mule wasn't having it. You hear me? So, the next time the farmer started, what did he do? Took that dirt, threw it in the hole. Took that dirt, threw it in the hole. Took that dirt, threw it in the hole. When the mule was in there, he'd shake it off. Shake it off. Shake, 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 shake it off. Shake, shake, shake. And you know, when people think we just jamming, trying to have a good time, they don't know sometimes we are dancing to survive. You know what I'm saying? Shake, 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 shake it off. And he realized he needed to adjust his little thing because the dirt was still coming up a little higher. So this time he modified it. He shook it off, stepped to the side, patted him to the ground. Shook it off, stepped to the side, packed it into the ground. What did he do?
Shake it off. Step to the side.
You thought I had a new dance.
Step to the side. Shake it to the ground.
And you know, Farmer Brown was still doing his dirty work. He was taking the dirt, throwing it in the hole, taking the dirt, throwing it in the hole. Come on. Taking the dirt, throwing it in the hole. Louder! Together! Okay, stop! Oh, Farmer Brown was tired. Oh, he went to reach for some lemonade. He decided to pour some over his head because it was so hot. But when he looked, the mule was now as high as he was. He couldn't figure out how that happened, but you know what? That mule wasn't looking so friendly this time. But I'm going to tell you now, the mule suffered no harm, as was done to him. He was often put away with all the food he helped to create. Most of the time, the mule wasn't fed well. The mule wasn't housed well. Some old shack with a hole in it, and when it got cold or snowed, that mule suffered. But the mule still came back. Sometimes we like that. Well, you know what? The mule this time decided he wasn't coming back. And the mule took off. This time he never saw him again. But I tell you that story because I'm sure in your life you've had somebody throw dirt on you. And even you little people, if it hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen. And for those of us that has happened, it still might happen again. So, you know, when people throw dirt on you, you're going to remember what? Shake, 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 shake it off. Shake it off what? Step to the side. Pack.
Down to
What you gonna do?
Shake it off. Step to the side. Pat,
One more time.
pat,
Good memory.
Shake it off. Step to the side. Pat, to the ground.
Because you might have people making fun of you because how you wear your hair, how you don't wear your hair. What you don't know, but it might be what you do know. Where you live, where you don't live, it could be about anything. Sometimes people just want to throw dirt. You just have to remember, you are greater than that. Protect yourself and move on. Go where you're needed and wanted and loved, and help to build your community stronger and more fortified than ever. Asante San. Nana Malana.
Let's hear it again.
Yeah.
Shake it off. Shake it off. They throw some dirt on you. Shake it off.
Real quick, so you guys know what we're gonna do. We're gonna hear all. So actually, my third elder just came in, so he'll be joining the ladies as well. So they'll all share their stories, and then we'll take a brief 10-minute intermission afterwards, and then you come back and you can ask any questions you want. So that's how we'll do this.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm Marci Walker, Marci Dodds Walker. I didn't have such an illustrious life as my sister. Well, because I didn't know any better, it was illustrious. I was born and raised in New York City. in a housing project called Jacob Reese. And it was what people call a melting pot. And they called it a melting pot because there were so many different ethnicities, so many cultures. I had no idea that there were places where there were only black people or only white people, and that somebody could call you a name and hurt you. They could call you a nigger and you would have to fight. I didn't know that. It wasn't until I became an adult and left home that I saw people of different colors not respecting each other because they were a different color. They looked different. They spoke differently. Their hair was different. Kind of sad, but it was true. And I found out later on that that was the majority of the world. Dogs, birds, animals don't discriminate against each other. And we are supposed to be superior beings. We're supposed to have dominion over all of the animals. They're supposed to be under us. But look at them. They don't discriminate against each other. A brown bird and a yellow bird can live together. No problems. Right? A black dog and a white dog can mate and make a beautiful speckled baby. But we don't do that because we're hung up on something so trivial as color. But in my mind, through my experience, my reading and my teaching, I found out that this is more than the color that you see. Okay? It's not really black and or white. It's about your experience. It's the culture. It's what you know how to eat. And how your mama can have a whole conversation on the telephone just saying, Am I telling the truth? Shell, what you talking about? We have a culture. We have a look. I did not have to tell my kids but one time, we're going to the mall. When we get to that mall, I want you to stand right here. Okay? Now, if something inside them told them, she ain't looking, go over here and check this out over here. All I did was this. Just a look. Just a look. Am I right, sister? Is it a look? Yeah. And I find that my children and their children don't know the look. Do you know the look? Child, I'll freeze your bones. What? I don't have to hit you? What? We have an unspoken conversations that is our culture.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
We don't even write about it. We just know and understand. We know we can say what and it means something. What? It can mean something. We have this wonderfulness about us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me growing up because some of you may or may not identify with it. Because I grew up in this Lower East Side of Manhattan where some of my dearest, most loved friends were white, Polish, Jewish, Chinese, African, all cultures. I ate at everybody's house and I was a fat little girl. I love all kinds of food and still do. But that wasn't a hindrance. The fat was, yeah. But the hindrance was that I could eat anywhere from anybody and not judge you for how you eat. People will judge you for how you eat, won't they? You eat chicken feet? Ah! Okay. So we had to get past all of that to get to the fact that People eat differently, and it's okay. It's okay. My parents decided, along with the members of my church, I was raised in a Lutheran church, and in the church, they had youth workers that came from all over the United States in the 60s in order to, I guess, share their culture with us. Most of them were white. And they came from the Midwest, and they came from California, and they shared what they knew, and we shared what we knew. And it was a nice pairing. But because I love to read and I love to talk, I could sit down with almost anybody, eat your food, and speak your language. My church decided that I should be the one to go and represent the Lower East Side in Chicago at 15. And my parents were like, you're not going out the courtyard, okay? Don't even think about going around the back. No. So when my pastor came and talked to my parents and said, we want Marci to go to Chicago and live in Cabrini, if anybody knows Cabrini, rough. We want her to live on the south side of Chicago and form a youth group so she can talk to the gangs, right? They didn't tell my parents about the gangs. Let me get that straight. They didn't tell my parents about the gangs. So at 15, I went to Chicago, still in this oblivion of there's no schools where there are no white teachers, Chinese teachers. There's no place where there's all black people. I didn't know, still didn't know. And I got to Chicago, and it was culture shock for me because there was not an integration at all. Not a bad thing, but a thing I needed to see. And we had meetings and teachings from groups of black men and women who were telling us, that the white man was the devil. The white man did this to you, and the white man did that to you. And I was like, what are they talking about? What are they talking about? Can you just imagine that? But with all that I was being fed during this time, it shook my foundation and how I was raised to see people. I became an avid racist. I was horrible. When I came back to my mother and father, I was sporting my afro, nice big afro, and I didn't allow anybody to say the word Negro around me. And now you heard me say not allowed, right? I done told you about my mother and father. We gathered one day at my parents' house, and the relatives came over because I had just come back. And my uncle, who financially is doing better than most of us were doing, loved to use the word nigger. He loved it. You see they got niggas on TV now. Every time I turn around, they got some niggas on TV. I get sick of looking at them. And I was getting more and more angry. So finally, I got it up. I said, Uncle Jay, let me ask you a question. Where is nigger? Where is it? What you talking about? I said, where does the word come from? You got Jews, okay, you got Italians come from Italy, you got Spanish come from Spain. Where does nigger come from? Better get your child. My mother said, Marci, that's a grown man. I said, Ma, he's grown, he's supposed to know. He should be able to tell me. I want to know. Well, I believe it comes from the word Negro. Okay, so it's a nasty derivative of the word Negro. Okay, where's Negro? Where's that at? Is that a country? Is that a place? Where do our people come from, Uncle Jay? Smarty, Mr. Financially Independent. Where do they come from? He couldn't answer me. All he could do was be angry with me. Do you ever ask questions and your mom can't answer them? Okay, don't be mad at her, okay? Just say, find out later. We ask questions and the adults are embarrassed because they don't know. Nobody knows everything. Nobody. I'm an elder a couple of times over. I still don't know everything. So I might have to go and ask my sister. But sometimes I have to ask my children because I just don't know. And it's not a bad thing. We have to be open to receiving information from the youngest because God puts pearls in everybody. So when your little baby comes and asks you something and you're like, go eat a bowl of cereal. Take a minute. Think about what they asked you. And then come back and tell them as best you can. A lot of times they don't even want to know the intricate details. What's sex, mommy? They don't really want to know the intricate details, but give them something that makes some sense. Y'all got me on that one? Yeah, we got to give our kids something that makes sense. I want to go to what I do. Because after this civil rights era in the 60s where I had dogs chase me, I carried signs, I went to see Dr. King at Soldiers Field, I did all that stuff, okay? I had white people chase me because I was with my best girlfriend who was white. I had black people chase me because I was with my white girlfriend. So I've had all of that, and it took me all these years to get back to my natural self. I don't hate you because you're a different color than me. I don't hate you. If you mess with me, then we got a different thing going on. But I don't hate you because of your culture or what you eat, okay? I take it very personally when you step to me. And let's deal with it that way. But I also take it personally when you deal with a whole group of people and oppress those people. Not because they're black, but because you're afraid. You know who we are? We are the mothers and fathers of human beings. White, black, yellow, all of them. We are mama and papa. And our children are afraid. They're afraid. And with fear comes all of the horror that we see right now in the White House. That demon in the White House, I'm sorry, yes, I did call him a demon because I think he's a sociopath. Not a racist. That's too good to call him a racist because you can change a racist mind. You can't change somebody who was from birth evil. Evil, I'm telling you, evil. Cannot. So we have to kind of leave that where it is and hope it dies. Go away. I had an experience with my grandmother, and I'm sorry I'm kind of jumping around because all these things are playing in my head right now. Has anybody heard I was born with a veil over my face? Has anybody ever heard that? Okay. My grandmother and my grandfather are both from South Carolina. I'm sorry, North Carolina. My mother's from North Carolina. My father's from South Carolina. And we were kind of close to the ground. They were close to the ground in that they were able to maintain some of the culture from the Middle Passage, okay? So my grandmother, who was a storyteller, a griot, would sit us down, all 9, my sisters and brothers, 4 sisters and 3 brothers, sit us all down and tell us stories about the veil. And I'd like to share that story, one of her stories, if I may. She said that some people used to call it a caul, C-A-U-L. and it was a piece of very, very thin skin that was covering the face of a baby. And they would have to peel. You need me? Okay, 5 minutes. They would have to peel that skin off of the face of the infant. And the old people and the midwives would take that skin and they would burn it. Okay? So this was what happened with my grandmother. And the veil allowed you to see in another dimension. Sound crazy? It's real. It's real. So my grandmother had 3 daughters, and she got married when she was 14 years old. Her husband, my grandfather, was a beast who used to beat her like she was a little girl with a belt. And they lived on a farm, and my grandmother couldn't stand it anymore. So she left and moved into a little house way, way out in the country. But her cousin Hezekiah used to come and check on her and her 3 daughters because they lived way, way out in the country all alone. So one night, she and Hezekiah, my grandmother Annie and Uncle Hezekiah, were sitting out on her steps in front of her house. All the girls were in bed. And she looked up. Oh, I should tell you that because they lived out in the country, they always had a gun with them. So she had her rifle, and he had his rifle. And they were talking, and they looked up, and she said in the distance, they could see 2 shining things, but it wasn't high enough to be stars. It was close to the ground, shining. And as they sat there, it got closer and closer, but it wasn't a steady kind of, it was like this. And as it got even closer, they could make out a figure, and it looked like a calf. And she said, Hezekiah, what you reckon that is? He said, oh, you look like a cow to me. She said, well, dang, boy, you see that thing's eyes? Yeah, well, let's hope it just go on about its business. Well, the thing got closer and closer and closer, and they looked at it, and its eyes were as big as a saucer with this little tiny body. But all of a sudden, the thing's mouth started to open slowly. So she grabbed her rifle and cocked it. She said, I'm going to blow this thing back to hell where it came from. And he hit the rifle and knocked it out. And he said, no, Annie, don't shoot him. He going to get us. Don't shoot him. He knocked the rifle out of her hand, and both of them screamed at the same time, Jesus! Jesus! What you think happened? It disappeared. It disappeared. We don't know why, and she said this, we don't know why that thing was sent from hell. Its teeth were like fangs, she said. I was so scared, I could not get up to go pee by myself that night. I was scared to death. I was going to see that thing because nobody ever told me I was born with a veil over my face. But I was. Because I see things. And sometimes, Jesus, it scares me so bad. But I know I got the key. I got the key. If it gets too crazy, I'll call him, Jesus! He come right by me. He come right by me. So when you get scared like that, even if you're not seeing it out of the realm of everybody else, call on that strength that you have inside of you. If somebody's bullying you in school, call on that thing that's inside of you that gives you the power and the strength to walk through it. You don't always have to pull that gun out and shoot it. Sometimes you just got to call on your strength and scare that thing back to hell where it came from. Thank you.
Thank you. Stand right here. Well, I'll get over this way. Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Stewart Stevens, and I'm the author of the book titled White House Chandelier. The reason why it's named Chandelier is because I cleaned chandeliers at the White House for 34 years.
Wow.
Plus wash windows and light globes. I'm the author of the book. My daughter there is the writer of the book. And the reason she's the writer of the book, because she's much smarter than I am. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about my family. This book has everything in it to tell you about what happened at the White House when I was working there. Okay, some things I can tell, some things I can't tell. I know you had to have a clearance to get in there, and it takes 6 months to get a clearance. Okay, and I had to have 6 months to get a job. Okay, now I'm gonna drop back to where I was at home. Okay, I come out of a family of 13 children. We was born and raised in Washington, D.C. We've been living in Maryland for the last 40-some years. I came, like I said, 13 children, very poor family. And my father was the only one that worked, and he had an outside job. My mother, she was a fantastic mother. She stayed home and raised the children. Okay, but I seen my father scuffle so hard to raise us, 13 children. He had a chance to get food stamps. He had a chance to get dwellings from the government. He wouldn't do it. He turned it down. He said, these are my children. I'm going to work to take care of them, and I don't need no help from the government. Okay? Because back in those days, everybody that got help from the government, projects and food stamps and all that, the other people looked down on you. So my father said, nobody's looking down on me. He said, I'm a full-blooded man. These are my children, and I'm going to take care of them. Well, I got the same thing from my father. But getting back to my father, I went to him one day, and I told him, I said, Dad, I said, I know it's hard on you. I said, but somebody's got to help you. I said, and I'm going to be the one that helps you. I said, I'm going to drop out of school, and I'm going to get a job. And then I'm going to help you take care of the family. And he said, no, you're not going to drop out of school. He said, what you're going to do, you're going to finish school. I said, yes, sir. So I went on back to school. Fella come in the neighborhood from Cottage Park, Maryland. Needed somebody to come to the bowling alley and set pins at night. So I told my mom, I said, tell Daddy that I'm going to work at night, go to school in the day. And she said, well, I'll tell you, Daddy, what you said. So she told him he didn't say nothing. But every time I mentioned about quitting school, he was against it. He said, you've got to have an education. He said, you've got to have an education, son. He said, you can't make it in this world if you don't get an education. I said, yes, sir, Daddy. So I slipped and worked at night, went to school in the daytime. I did it for about 6 months. Grades was dropping. I went back to my dad again. I told him, I said, Dad, I said, my grades are dropping. I'm trying to work at night. I didn't want you to know it. I said, but I can't keep up my grades. And he said, well, son, do the best you can do. And I said, well, Daddy, I will. Thank you. So I worked at night, went to school in the day. My grades got real bad, so I dropped out of school. I went back to my father and told him that I'm not doing good in school, so I dropped out. And he said, what? I said, yes, sir. I said, I need you to sign for me. I'm going in the military. And the reason I wanted to go in the military, because I knew that if I went in the military, I could learn in the military. I would get a check in the military. I would put so much with the check, and the government would put so much of their money into the check, which is called a Class E check. Okay, so every month I sent a check home to my dad and my mom to finish raising my little sisters and brothers, making sure they went to school, making sure they had plenty to eat. That was my goal to do, was to help take care of my family. Okay, I went in the military. I did very good. I went to military police school and learned how to be a police. And I learned how to be a police because I wanted to always love police, and I wanted to get out and be a police so I could have some authority over some of these people running around the street acting crazy. That was one of the reasons I wanted to be a police. But I wanted to make sure that I was trained good enough to do that. Okay, so this is what happened. After me having 16 weeks, the military police school, finished basic and all that, come home from the military, tried to get my job in D.C. where I was born at. Police department wouldn't hire me because I was black. They said, we're not hiring blacks. I said, but the fire department is hiring blacks. I said, but if you go down to the fire department and put your name on that, they got a list down there that long. Put your name on it and wait, they'll call you. So I went down and put my name on the fire department list. Okay, so I'm waiting on my people to call me, the government to call me to be on the fire department. What happened, 2 or 3 months went by. So my father said, Dad, my father said, son, I'm going to tell you something. You can wait for the government to send you your application so you can get the job, but you can't stay home and do nothing. He said, you saved a lot of money while you was in the military. You did good. He said, now you're home, you're picking up some of the bad habits of these young guys out in the street. And said, you're going to do that if you don't get a job. I said, okay, Dad. I said, I'm going to go look for one. So I went to the unemployment office and whatnot, trying to find a job. Couldn't find nothing that I liked. So I went back and I told him, and then my 2 brothers, they started a window cleaning business. They were washing windows, subcontracting work from different companies, and that's how they was making a living. So they told my dad, said, I'll give him a job. Said, we want him to work with us. So kept telling me, my middle name is Calvin. They said, Calvin, oh, you afraid of heights? I said, no. They said, well, come on, we're going to show you how to wash windows. Took me down to the commerce department, put me up on the 6th floor, and told me how to use a safety belt. Yeah, and when you use a safety belt, you get out of the window in a proper way, but after you get out, you cannot stand up straight and wash windows. You have to lean back, all the way back. And when you lean all the way back, it's like you just hanging out there and floating just in air. So they showed me how to do that, and I learned good. But one day, when I was working, it got down off of the ladder where I had been working, this white fella by the name of Charlie Rochford. Everything I'm telling you is in this book. And nothing in the book is a lie. This book was dedicated to my wife that I lost about 4 years ago. Okay, so the gentleman asked me, said, have you ever been in the military, sir? And I said, yes, I have. He said, you ever had a record? Been in any trouble? I said, no, sir, I haven't. I'm saying that to say to all of the young people in the audience that go to school, learn as much as you can, but also make sure you have a good record. Because if you want to get a good job, you're going to have a good record as well as education. Because if you got a bad record, you can have all the education you want, and you will not get into government and get a good job because of your record, and you won't pass the clearance. So you got to be able to pass the clearance, and you got to have the good education. You got to have just no trouble. I mean, don't hang with the gangs. And when they're getting in trouble, hey, go home to your mother and father. Don't hang with them, because they're going to cause you to have a bad record and you never get a good job. So, like I was saying, the gentleman named Mr. Rochford, he seen me getting down off the ladder, and he asked me that I'd been in the military. He asked me had I had any problem, any trouble. I told him no, I hadn't. He said, well, come over to the office, he says. I'm going to give you a stack of papers to take them home and fill them out. He said, you fill out every block. He said, and if you fill out every block, he said, we're going to, Secret Service going to clear you. They're going to run tests, and everybody you know, they're going to check you out. He said, but you can work at the White House temporarily until they find a pass to clear you to work permanently. So that was good. I didn't mind that because I knew it wasn't going to be no problem because I didn't have no record. I'd never got in no trouble. Been in the military, never got in no trouble. I went to school while I was in there. I learned. So I said, okay. Took the papers home. We filled the papers out. My mom and dad, I had them to help me out because I had 12 brothers and sisters. So I had to have all of them ages, all of them telephone numbers, and all of them names, everything. So I had to tell Mom, where do Betty live at? Where's John live at? What's their addresses? Because some of them was in Baltimore, and some was in Washington, and some was in Maryland. But there wasn't no problem. Mom and Dad know every address, every name, every birthday. So I had to get all of that, take all of that down and give it to the Secret Service. Okay, well, they checking me out. They checked me out for 6 months because I was stationed in Germany a while, and they had to get my records from Germany, make sure that I wasn't in no trouble and I wasn't lying. Okay, so finally, I went over, and a gentleman named Mr. Wilson, he was at the White House washing windows. So Mr. Rochford told me that this guy named Mr. Wilson don't know how to wash no windows. And said, we need a window washer. And he said, I seen that you know how. So I said, yes, sir. So he said, come on, go with me. So he carried me over and introduced me to Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson told me, he said, Mr. Stephen, he said, I'm not a window washer. He said, Gentleman's Service sent me over here and tried to make a window washer out of me. He said, but I'm not hanging out of those windows. He said, I'm afraid to go up there, and I think all the rest of the people around here are scared too. He said, it's dangerous. He said, you ever hang out those windows? I said, yes, all the time. I'm not afraid of it. So he said, well, you can have this job. I don't want it. He said, take all of my equipment and everything. He said, because I'm not washing no windows. So I said, yes, sir. I said, I'll do the best I can. He gave me his stuff. He said, I'm going to let them have me going back to vacuum and rubbed and things like I was doing, because he said, I'm not getting out of them windows. And he said, if anybody want to get out there and hang out there, he said, they crazy. So I looked at him, I said, well, I'm a little crazy, sir, I said, because I've been doing it. I'm a regular window washer. So he said, okay. So I started working temporarily with a pass, hadn't got my regular pass, still waiting on the Secret Service to clear me so I could get a permanent pass at the White House. Okay, so by me working for contractors before I got there, I was real fast. I know how to clean the windows real fast because you have to make so much money for the boss before you start making money for yourself. So that's what I was doing, working for contractors. So when after I cleaned windows over there for a while, and I hadn't got my clearance, so I went to the boss upstairs in the White House and I told him. His name was Mr. Rex Scouten. And I said, Mr. Scouten? He said, yeah, what can I do for you, Steve? I said, I'm so fast, it's not enough work to keep me busy. And he said, well, what you suggesting? I said, I'm suggesting that I have to do something else to keep from getting in trouble. I said, most of the people here, they playing dots, shooting dots, playing dots, playing cards, and everything else. I said, I don't want to get involved in that. He said, well, what you going to do? I said, I've noticed these chandeliers. I said, who's been cleaning them? And he said, nobody, Stephen. Said, you think you can clean them? I said, yes, sir. I said, I can clean them. I said, I cleaned some down at the Commerce Department. He said, well, what we're going to do, he said, I'm going to give you a shot at it. He said, but I'm going to tell you this. The chandeliers are very expensive. He said, if you break one, he said, you gone. So I said, yes, sir. So I'm not worried about all that. I said, I'll try. So he said, what you need? I said, I need the painters to put me up a scalp. And yes, 5 minutes, I haven't even got started. I'm sorry, I haven't got started. I could be here a long time. We're going to talk after the end of mission?
Okay.
I want to say a little bit because you're telling all the book and I want to help you out.
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay, so what we want to say is he is a part of Black history. Regardless of what that name means right now, because we know it don't mean too much. But he worked in the golden era of the White House under 7 presidents. Now, 7 is God's number of completion, so he worked under 7, from Nixon up until George Bush, right after the 9/11. And he did what he did. He was the only one that did all the windows and all the chandeliers. And he also worked at the state dinners. So he has his own story. He doesn't need to write off the butlers, but he did frequent and was friends with the butler. The butler worked the night shift as the butler, and he did coat checks, and he also sent him cards back from Hawaii and different places. They were really friends.
Yes.
But Mr. Stevens is the only one that did what he did. He is a fabulous black historian. He he went from small beginnings in Washington, D.C. and Marshall Heights. The reason he dropped out of school wasn't because he skipped from the 4th to the 5th. He got to middle school over here at Hugh Brown near Spin Garden High School, and they had a whole lot of segregation at that time, just as they have gentrification going on now. So the textbooks were torn and all of the, you know the story. So they sent the other students over to Elliott or Sousa or wherever. But at the same point in time, because he came from a very sort of poor family and was trying to make something of himself, he felt led to drop out of school, which was his best decision rather than just hanging out. He didn't drop out to hang out. He dropped out to go on and make something of his life. We appreciate you coming out and hearing everybody's story and hearing my dad's story of how he was one of the ones that did all that he could do, did all the windows, all the chandeliers, and which was a very strenuous job because you got to focus on cleaning every piece of chandelier, not dropping or breaking one. Also not falling out, breaking, and killing yourself. And also being out in traffic, out on the street, doing all the windows. Thank you. Doing all the windows. You had to focus on, hey, this could be my last day. I could be splat on the ground. So if it wasn't for God, he couldn't have done that. If it wasn't for my mother, who was a very good support system for him, and God rest her soul, she's gone on to a better place now. But we're having a play coming up in July at the Ark, and we're trying to get that together. And the story is mostly focused, the content, on my mother and my father. We do appreciate the presidents. We do appreciate the work they did, but we also appreciate the work he did to keep that place shining. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, I know we're going to take a break. I know she's coming to let you know that. So, congratulations on his book. We'll have more questions and there'll be more stories. My book is not here, but you can look up a book called Oh Freedom, Stories of the Civil Rights Movement. And I talk about being named after Marian Anderson and doing some things about her. And I'm sure there's some other books we can talk about. I also want to mention that I want you all see yourselves as future famous people. We now know about his book, you know, about her life and mine. Some of the students who have gotten famous of mine, Dave Chappelle is one. Taraji P. Henson, Chad Boseman, the Black Panther, and my son, who played Sheriff Troy, Lamont Rucker. So many of them went to Duke Ellington or Howard University here in the city. I have 5 kids, 15 grands, and 2 great-grandbabies. So we got a lot to talk about when you come back. So.
Yes, please give these elders a hand, family. Yes. Mr. Stewart's book is for sale, so definitely check him out over there. We're going to take a brief 10-minute intermission. Definitely please support the vendors in the room. This is the main purpose for our Black Wall Street Renaissance, is to sow seeds into our own community and circulate the dollar within our own community. And, you know, we hear these things over and over and over again, but sometimes I don't think it resonates that we are the ones that are going to do it. Nobody else is going to do it but us. So please, family, you know, take a few bucks and sow seeds back into your own community. And when we come back, just, you know, anybody, but specifically, especially the young ones, get your questions ready for your elders. Anything you want to know about back in the day before you were born. And they're here to answer your questions. Okay, we'll be back in 10 minutes. Thank you.
I also want to encourage you. I do programs for young people, and